The night was thick with darkness, and the air in the room felt suffocating, as though it too had been waiting in anticipation. For Emily, it was always the same. No matter how many times she lay down to sleep, her mind never quite let her rest. It started with the silence, the kind of silence that presses down on you, heavy and oppressive. But even that was soon broken by the soft creaks of the old house settling in the dark. Her eyes darted around, scanning the shadows, trying to calm the rush of anxiety that crept over her. But something in her gut told her that tonight, something was different. She had always been a skeptic. Her logical mind dismissed the idea that there was anything out of the ordinary about her fears, but it never stopped her from feeling like she wasn't truly alone. The feeling of being watched at night was not new, but tonight, it had reached a whole new level. As the minutes passed, Emily found herself unable to tear her gaze from the corner of the room. The shadows there seemed thicker, as though they had a life of their own. Her heartbeat quickened, and she squeezed her eyes shut, willing herself to ignore it. But the sensation wouldn't leave. It wasn't just paranoia anymore. There was a tangible weight to the air, a sense of presence that pressed in on her. She had heard the stories before, about people feeling watched, but she never imagined it could feel so real. She pulled the blanket up to her chin, as though it could shield her from whatever invisible force hovered near her. Every creak, every rustle of the house made her jump. She tried to remind herself that it was just the house, old and creaky, but the rational explanation couldn't quiet the dread that was gnawing at her. The feeling intensified as the minutes turned to hours. It was no longer just the shadows in the corner of her vision, but the air itself, thick with tension. She heard faint breathing, slow, almost imperceptible, as if someone were standing right beside her, close enough to touch. She froze, heart hammering in her chest. Was she imagining it? No, it was too real. The hairs on the back of her neck stood on end. Her breathing grew shallow as she dared a glance around the room. The darkness seemed to stretch toward her, eager, waiting for her to make a mistake. As she lay there, paralyzed, Emily's mind began to race. Was there someone in the house? Had someone broken in? She wanted to call out, but her voice was trapped in her throat. It was as though the fear had lodged itself there, choking her. She could almost feel eyes on her, cold and unblinking. But every time she tried to look around, she saw nothing. No figures, no shadows moving. Yet the weight, the presence, it was still there, lingering just beyond her sight. Her thoughts began to spiral. What if this wasn't just her mind playing tricks on her? What if there was something else in the room? Something she couldn't see but could feel. The very idea made her skin crawl. There were whispers in the dark corners of her mind. Stories she'd heard about haunted houses and restless spirits. Could it be that she had stumbled upon one of those places where the veil between the living and the dead was so thin, the past and the present bled together? Emily tried to calm herself. She had heard the stories before. People talked about the eerie feeling of being watched, how their minds conjured up figures in the dark, how the mind could create what wasn't there. But the more she tried to rationalize it, the more intense the sensation became. The fear crept deeper into her chest, wrapping around her like a vice. She could feel the cold breath of the night, its icy fingers brushing against her skin. Was it the wind? Was it the house? Or was there something else? As her mind teetered on the edge of terror, she heard it, a sound that stopped her heart. A whisper. It was so faint, so low, she almost didn't believe it. But it came again, louder this time. And this time, Emily didn't have to imagine it. She heard it clearly. It was as if someone was speaking just above a whisper, right behind her ear. The words were indistinguishable, but the voice was unmistakable. It was soft, almost affectionate, but there was an undercurrent of malice in it. Emily's heart raced. She snapped her head around to face the room, but there was no one there. Terror surged through her as she struggled to move, to break free from the invisible grip of fear that held her down. Her mind screamed at her to get up, to run, but her body refused to obey. The room felt smaller now, the walls pressing in closer with each passing second. She felt the eyes again, cold, unblinking, following her every move, waiting for her to do something, anything, that would confirm they were real. And then, in the thickest moment of terror, something shifted. The air that had once been so oppressive, so thick with dread, began to feel lighter, almost normal. as if whatever had been watching her had finally decided to retreat. Emily lay there, too afraid to move, too afraid to close her eyes, and yet too exhausted to stay awake any longer. In the moments before she finally succumbed to sleep, a realization crept into her mind. Maybe it wasn't about the shadows, or the whispers, or the cold touch of the unseen. Maybe it wasn't about what was in the room at all. Maybe the fear of being watched at night wasn't about what was happening around her. It was about what was happening inside her. A mind stretched so thin by fear that it could no longer tell the difference between what was real and what was imagined. But Emily would never forget that night, that feeling, the way the darkness seemed to have eyes of its own, the way it followed her, never letting her forget that she was never truly alone. And even now, years later, when she lies down in her own bed, the shadows still seem to whisper, and the cold air still brushes against her skin. It doesn't matter how many times she tells herself she's safe, the fear lingers, lurking just beneath the surface, waiting for the next night to fall. Because sometimes, the worst part isn't the fear itself. It's knowing that there's no escape, that the presence, whatever it is, might never truly leave.